Hello, everybody, and welcome back to VetMap. I'm really glad you're here, and today we'll continue our lectures on the respiratory system, particularly about trachea and the bronchus. So let's jump right into this lecture, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's begin by talking about what trachea actually is and what it's made of. So it actually extends from the caudal end of the larynx to the actual bronchi, where it divides into two principal bronchi. It can and it does pass to the base of the heart. So as you can see, it goes through the most of the thoracic cavity, where it divides then into two principal bronchi, as already mentioned, and each bronchi is assigned to one of the lungs, so right or the left. And the trachea is formed by a series of C-shaped hyaline tracheal cartilages that actually provide enough hardness to resist collapse. So as you know, it's important that the airways stay open, that the animal or us can breathe normally. So this is where that cartilage comes in handy. But the shape being C allows for the esophagus to rest into that small crevice. So it's like a half moon or a young moon. It doesn't close all the way, uh, but the cartilage it's not closed all the way. So that's why the esophagus can rest in that space while the trachea and the cartilage provides enough space for the air to pass through. And those cartilages, C-shaped cartilages, are joined together by elastic ligaments that actually allow the trachea to be flexible and actually follow the movements of the neck, because it wouldn't be good if the animal couldn't bend its neck because of the trachea being too hard and there not being enough flexibility. Now we will discuss the actual elements of the trachea. There are quite a few, but we'll go through them one by one. So, this is the first little graphic picture that we'll talk about, and this is the second one. First up, we have the tracheal ring, which is C-shaped, as we already discussed, and it's made of hyaline cartilage. And it provides the hardness to resist the collapse of the whole trachea. So this is where the tracheal ring is. And different animals, different species have the different amount of these individual cartilages. So as you can see, those like individual rings. So as you can see, pigs have between 32 to 36. Then bovines, so ruminants, and equines have a similar number. And then carnivores have between 42 to 46 cartilage rings in their trachea. Then we have the tracheal muscle, which is a smooth muscle that actually affects the diameter of the trachea. So this is where it's located. And different animals have a different positioning of this tracheal muscle. So as you can see, it's quite different and it creates a different shape of the trachea. Okay, so let's talk about these tracheal muscles some more, about each species. So first we have the carnivore's tracheal muscle. So the dorsal end of the actual tracheal rings touch, and the muscle is located more on the outside rather than the inside of the tracheal ring. Now, pigs' dorsal ends of the tracheal ring are actually on top of each other, and as you can see, the muscle is already on the inside. Now, bovines' dorsal ends of the ring are next to each other and create this roof. Also, as you can see, muscles on the inside, but it's more in like a horizontal shape rather than the one of the pig, which is going downhill. And then equine's dorsal ends of the tracheal ring are pressed down or up, and again the tracheal muscle is on the inside. We're 5 minutes into this lecture, so don't forget to press that subscribe button and become part of this family so you never miss a video. And we do learn quite amazing things here, so don't forget to subscribe. And let's talk about one ligament that it's important to you in this lecture. So it actually connects the trachea to the larynx. So it's the reason why we and animals can take in the air through their nostrils or through their mouth, and that air then goes from the trachea to the actual lungs. So it connects those two parts and is the reason why air can flow without any disruptions. So we have a lot of ligaments and a lot of elements of the larynx here, but the one that's important is right here. So this is where it is. So this is where the larynx ends. This is the last cartilage of the larynx, and this is where trachea begins. This is the first ring, and the space between them is filled by this ligament. Now the actual trachea is divided into two parts. It's not hard to tell where one begins and where one ends. So the first part of the trachea is cervical, pars cervicalis, and is located in the ventral side of the neck. And it begins at the base, so where the larynx ends, and it ends where the neck stops. And the thoracic parts, again, it begins where the thoracic cavity begins. So a pars thoracica is ventral to the esophagus, which means that it's below the esophagus. So that C-shaped curve, I'm gonna draw this for you in 1 second. We're gonna get a pen. So let's say this is the trachea, right? This is the tracheal ring. We would have the muscle on the inside, right? And this is where the esophagus would be, right? So this is how it's located in the thoracic part. Pam, 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 and we need to erase this quickly. Okay, I don't need the pen, I need a laser. Okay, so, and despite of not only being ventral to the esophagus, it's actually also dorsal to the cranial vena cava. And another thing is the tracheal division. So this is where the trachea divides into two principal bronchi, and it happens at fifth or sixth intercostal gap. So this is important, and this is the area where the trachea ends and the bronchus begins. Now we are in the bronchus territory. So we left the trachea, and now we're being divided into two primary bronchus. So I already said that. So it's principal or primary bronchus, it's one and the same. Actually, pigs and ruminants have an additional tracheal bronchus, which we already discussed in the lecture about lungs. So definitely head there if you want to know more. And it supplies the cranial lobe of the right lung with air. So it would be right here. Now the principal bronchi then are divided into smaller bronchus or bronchi, which are called lobar or secondary, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller until we arrive to the alveoli. So yeah, so this is what I said. And the alveoli are the only area where the exchange of the gases actually take place. So if you're ever asked the question on your exam or a practical where the exchange of the gases actually happens, the only place is the membranes of the alveoli, nowhere else. Not in the trachea, not in the bronchus, not in the bronchioli, only in the alveoli. So definitely write this down or highlight this for yourselves. Hang in there, we only have two more slides to go. So the walls of the bronchi are also supported by cartilaginous plates. They're much thinner, but they are still there so they don't collapse on each other. But when we reach only 1 millimeter in diameter, then we don't have the cartilage in the membrane no more because it would take up just too much space and it would be hard for the air to get from the bronchus to the bronchioles. So that's why the name changes and the actual composition of the bronchiole changes. And last but certainly not least, we have the tree of the bronchus or arbor bronchialis. So this is how the bronchus are divided. So the first have the bronchus principalis or the principal or the primary bronchus. Then we have lobar bronchus, which are then divided into segmental bronchus. So again, I would definitely recommend to check out the lecture on the lungs. It will be easier to understand how the bronchus are divided if you check that out. So we have principal bronchus for the lung, right? Then the lung is divided into lobes. So those principal bronchus are then divided into lobar bronchus, one for each lobe of the lung. So depending on the animal, let's say a cow would have 6 lobar bronchus. Then we have the segmental bronchus or bronchi segmentalis. So this is where, let's say, like cranial lobe of the left lung of the cow would have two parts or two segments, so cranial and caudal. So that lobe of the left lung would have two segmental bronchus. And then those segmental bronchus are divided into terminal bronchioli or into respiratory bronchioli. So terminal bronchioli is more like just a duct, more like that. And then the respiratory bronchioli then is divided into ducts of the alveoli. So again, a duct. So you can see this right here. And then you have a sac. Think of it like a bunch of grapes, a bunch of grapes at the end of the branch. So this is where the alveoli is located, and this is where the exchange of the gases happens. So you have to go all through this to get to that one alveoli where the CO2 changes with the oxygen. Here we have the very quick last thing. So the additional tracheal bronchus, I just wanted it to show you one more time so it would be easier to remember. So this is where it's located. So this is the lungs of a cow. So here we have the trachea, and it still continues down and then is divided into two principal bronchi. But here is the tracheal bronchus. So as you can see, it branches out of the trachea earlier than the principal bronchi, and you can actually see it with an endoscope very well. So don't be surprised if you see this like one hole in the trachea. Don't think that it's abnormal or that it's a principal bronchi, and let's say if a cow doesn't have another one, it has just one, so it's not like that. It's just additional tracheal bronchus. So don't forget that. Have the literature and other sources as always if you need something for your own slides or projects or just for learning in general. So these are amazing sites and books. The anatomy and physiology of farm animals was the main source of information for these slides, so feel free to check them out as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back for other lectures, and definitely leave comments below whatever things you want to see on this channel. Bye!